Hi, how you doing? Welcome to First Key Congregation. No, our webcam has not been drinking a little sake. Instead, we had to improvise a little bit. If you look at our Facebook page, you'll see what happened. Somebody is having a very discombobulated day. That would be me. And for doing First Key, there's actually, I'm not going to say there's rituals, but there are things that happen every time. And I like consistency. I have ADHD, so I like to be on a schedule and things like this, and I eat at a certain time before First Geek, all these things. None of it happened today, because I was actually kicking it at a friend's place last night. I don't have my tripod, so we're now using a hat rack for a tripod, which is hilarious. And apparently I didn't get it as level as I thought I did. Just have to stand like this the whole time. So I'm a little more discombobulated than normal, which is saying something. And I've got all of these notes here, tons of stuff, and I don't know, they're not in the order that I should normally have stuff, beginning through end, which I have this plan. This is how it's going to go. We don't actually do that. Never actually happens, but I like having a plan. A plan sounds like a great idea. So anyways, welcome to First Key Congregation. We're at the Center of Wichita. For those who don't know, the Center of Wichita is, yes?
Follow the instructions.
Say what?
There are pictures.
Follow the instructions.
Yeah, good thing that's not something.
Derailed. That's a new record.
No, there's some record place happened before this camera even started.
Let him get through the center phase.
We're at the Center of Wichita. If you don't know what the Center of Wichita is, it is the LGBT community center. They have meeting rooms and places like that. As a matter of fact, while we're doing our thing here, if you should happen to hear loud noises from the next room, that's actually the Listen group that's meeting right now. They've got 4 different meeting areas. They also host the Get Connected group, which is a teen group, which is one of the things I very much support about this place. It's an LGBT teen group. Gives them someplace safe to be, safe people to talk to, a judgment-free sort of area. If you've never heard of the Center of Wichita, please check it out, thecenterofwichita.org. Consider giving some time or giving some money to them. It's one of those things that's supported completely by the community, and it is very worthwhile. Now, being a congregation that's meeting at the Center of Wichita, you would think, oh, they must be one of those gay churches. No, we're not. Actually, we just like everybody. We don't care what religion somebody is. We don't care what somebody's orientation is. We don't care any of that stuff. You're welcome to come up, show up, and we'll make fun of you just like we do everybody else. And there's one person in the crowd nodding yes. And it really is true. We pretty much make fun of everything. And today in particular, we're going to be making fun of things that's going to, probably get me in a little trouble. Paul versus Jesus, or Jesus versus Paul, take your pick. And the reason for this is there's been a number of times I've commented that Christianity is really actually, a lot of it is Pauline based rather than Jesus based. And there's a lot of supporting material for that. That's not necessarily completely a bad thing. Paul's letters ends up being the foundation for a lot of ideas. A lot of good things come out of it. There's also some things that I personally find to be questionable that Paul says. And there's a number of times where Paul was an angry man at one point. I mean, you can kind of tell Paul was kind of pissed at everybody. Or at least the churches he was writing to, some of which he hadn't even visited yet. So it got me curious. I'm going to throw this up here because I had to do my own little research for this. Everybody has a list of commandments parsed out in certain ways. Now, for those who don't know, the Old Testament has 613 or 611 commandments in it, depending on who's doing the counting and how they count, all that good stuff. The New Testament, does anybody know how many is in the New Testament?
2?
No, 1,050.
1,050?
Yes, huge, voluminous list of things that we should do, should not do, that we should pass, that we should want, everything. All of that is covered in huge amounts. Now, the interesting part of this, let's just start right here. And it's not that I have too much time on my hands, but some days it gets excessive. There is 613 Old Testament.
Not quite the amount of people on the Enterprise D.
So what?
Not quite the amount of people on the Enterprise D.
Nice.
But you don't know how many red shirt
Nice.
commandments there are.
I commented earlier that this room was full of more geek than it can handle. They will have to wash the geek out of this room when we leave.
They got a steam cleaner for them.
And just out of curiosity, wild stat, can anybody guess how many of those commandments in the New Testament come from Jesus? Just wild stat. One. Nobody's gonna check this. Everybody. Got one or two. No, you're actually a little low.
45.
42.
I remember.
I like 42, that would be a good number.
Your neighbor as yourself.
Mhm.
And I remember him saying, I'm leaving you a new commandment that you love each other as I have loved you. Like right off before he went out to die.
Yeah.
Those are the two I remember. Specifically saying commandments.
Well, and the way the commandments, and I actually kind of prefer the way it's mentioned in the Old Testament. If you're following Hebraic traditions and stuff, you call it mitzvot. And mitzvot being commandments and judgments and rulings. That's 613 then, or 611, depending on who's doing the counting. This has become the new traditional version of it. It's a 613. At one time, it was 611 was the predominant thing, and it depends on a couple of factors. And this one's actually a little easier to calculate because you just basically go through and somebody says you should or don't do this, you count it. It's pretty easy to do that. Jesus only says 156 of these, and a lot of his are actually Old Testament laws. Out of the 1,050, most of them actually come from Paul. I mean, out of his writings, because let's face it,
He was giving instructions to churches.
Yes, and again, I'm not saying everything he said was wrong by any means. For instance, there are whole sets of rules for if you're going to do what I'm doing, for instance. You're not to be quick to anger. You're not supposed to be quick to judge. You're not supposed to be a drunkard. You're not supposed to. They're really actually really good rules.
Your wife is not supposed to be slanderous.
Yes.
Yeah.
All sorts of things like that.
Which is funny because most of the priests don't marry in like the Catholic tradition.
Yeah, in Catholicism you don't have any marriage, but almost everybody else does.
Yeah.
Almost.
Wow.
Quick quiz: does anybody remember if the Lutherans marry? I think they do.
I don't remember.
I almost want to do.
I know the Orthodox do.
Google over here is looking it up real quick.
Awesome.
Wow. First on the list.
Nice.
I want to say, no, that's not Lutheran. I think Seventh Heaven is a Lutheran pastor, isn't it?
Yes, they can marry. Luther married a former nun.
That's weird. I did not know that little tidbit. That's kind of interesting. Never mind. I'm not going to make all the comments I was making. Okay. Get that out of my head. Anyways, so even just for general rules and stuff, more likely than not, if somebody quotes a rule from the New Testament, it's probably going to be one of Paul's. And actually, most of the stuff I hear people quoting online is not from Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. Most of the stuff I hear people quoting online, Galatians, Colossians, Galatians, and Acts. Those are the things that you hear quoted the most frequently. Those are the go-to.
More Philippians and Ephesians, Galatians.
Galatians, I'll tell you why I keep hearing Galatians, usually fruits of the Spirit. Sins of the flesh, fruits of the Spirit. That's the only section out of Galatians, though. Everybody else ignores the rest of it. It's that section. But a lot of these things are foundational to the church. I mean, these are a big deal. These are how we got where we're at now with Christianity. The problem is there's a small minority of people that debate that we don't actually follow Christianity. What we follow is kind of a Paulinism. We're more worried about the writings of Paul, somebody who wrote letters to other churches. Now, this started 3 weeks ago because we've had 2 snow days in a row.
This is why you really are out of whack.
Oh, I'm not
trying to get
two weeks out of practice now. And you know what's going to happen is I'm going to walk outside and get a little snow, 12 inches with a 2 inch layer of ice on top, because every time I cancel because of snow, the next day it was beautiful. Well, I won't say beautiful, but it was not bad. Yeah, it was not bad. So, okay, so this is all foundational. So I started digging in because I keep saying one of these days we're going to go over some of Paul's stuff because, you know, there's things. And I started digging in. And what I found was there are people, because there are people who take everything to the extreme. Now, you notice I've been very careful to say, no, some of his stuff's not important writings. But there are people who've basically gone to the point of, no, what you should do is you take that section of the Bible and just rip it out and you know, just get rid of that. They view him as a fraud. They view him as, well, he was a murderer. I mean, that was kind of thing. But a fraud, a thief, murderer, all these things. And that being the 13th apostle,
or 14th.
if you want to count Biff.
I forgot who they replaced. Judas.
You don't know off the top of your head.
No.
I don't know.
I don't know. You're pointing at him. Why are you pointing at him?
Because he's the quiet one. The quiet one of the group's always the one that does the most.
Well, then I should shut up more.
Well played. And actually, my Biff comment, if nobody's ever read it, hunt down a book by Christopher Moore called Lamb, the Gospel according to Biff. Biff was Jesus' childhood friend. Complete heresy, but it's awesome. Anyways, so anytime you see somebody who's kind of that over the top, I mean, we're talking, somebody wrote an entire book. You can download this whole thing online. I decided I wasn't going to read the whole thing after the introduction. I pretty much decided, you know, I'm kind of done with this. There's a lot of hate involved in that. But one of the reasons why some of these people who do have this opinion and that are a little hateful about it, a lot of times has to do with homosexuality, things like that. Paul spoke more harshly on these topics. Fornication. Paul apparently hated sex in every possible respect. That's all I can figure out. Because it's mentioned a number of times. Jesus, on the other hand, how many times did Jesus say anything about homosexuality? We all know the answer. So what?
Zero.
Zero, yeah. Was not interested. It was not an issue. In fact, most of what Jesus had to say was positives. Not all of it. Depending on how you do counting, some people do a counting system where it's positives and negatives. Out of 613 Old Testament laws, a bit over half are considered to be negatives. Do not do, do not think, do not act in such fashion, versus positives. Do these things. Do act this way. Do help others, etc., etc. Jesus tends to fall. Most of his stuff tends to fall, actually kind of fall somewhat positive. Paul's stuff, on the other hand, a lot of it, it's really kind of almost a split, because a lot of it in some of his letters is really, yeah, you don't be, no, and no. But not all of them that way.
Judas was replaced by Matthias.
Thank you.
Well, they nominated two possibilities. The other one was Barsabbas, but they drew lots to determine which one of them got the job.
Gotcha. Actually, it was appropriate in the time period to have drawn lots too. So, anybody want to give a quick history of Paul? Quick history of Paul.
He was a Pharisee. He hung out with the coats while the guys stoned Stephen. Sorry, why the other Pharisees stoned Stephen. He approved of it. He thought that was the way to go, and he started persecuting the churches. And he got letters. He was like a favorite student of, I don't know, was it Gamaliel or something like that? One of the major Pharisee teachers, because apparently he had to talk about that at some point when he was trying to give them an idea of how Jewish he was, because they were listening to other Jewish people about the whole circumcision issue, and he had to go ahead and bring up his credentials to remind them that yes, he is more Jewish than these other Jews. You know, if you want to go by credentials, he's got them made. But the thing is that he's got a different message from God than these guys do, and they're wrong. They're from Satan, the Church of Satan. Sorry, the synagogue of Satan. It rhymed. Well, it didn't rhyme. Sorry. Alliteration.
So it doesn't matter which side of the fence he was on. Paul was a pretty intense guy. I mean, really.
Before he changed, he was intense. After he changed, he was intense. It's just the intensity went from trying to murder you to trying to get you to stop murdering other people.
Yes.
Paul.
Say what?
Sorry, we've been watching Dragon Ball Z and Majin.
His first form.
Majin King is my mate.
Sorry.
Never mind.
Oh, really?
Just don't ask. No, Paul.
And the problem is I've got Paul because some of the depictions of Paul was basically mostly Paul to the back here.
I have seen no images. I've got nothing.
And the rest of what I'm seeing is the rest of it basically kind of doing the Super Saiyan thing. Saiyan, sorry.
Sorry.
Those almost 9,000. Anyways,
That's over 9,000 commandments. Oh, wait, sorry.
well, if we would have kept going.
Who knows? There might be some other books.
Okay, which also brings up the next that one of the problems, and one of the reasons why I did the little experiment of starting to split all this stuff up a little bit. And I'm now, by the way, this puts me in the category of being one of those guys, because everybody has their ways of splitting up the commandments into it. So I ended up creating my own, just so I could do this one. I'm like, I just became one of those guys I made fun of. One of the problems also becomes a matter of authenticity. There are 14 books. Or 14
27.
letters. What?
Number 27.
Of Paul's. Of those, 6 of those are absolutely authentic. We're absolutely positive those are authentically written by Paul. The problem is over the years, the rest of them have been one way or another, including originally when they were doing the Council of Nicaea. Prior to that, the Jewish Council, which was, what was the Jewish Council's name? Dang it. Really? Seriously? What is that? Simply walk into First Geek. Hi, Paul. I'm gone. Thanks, Marshall.
At least this time it's after all of the intro.
Yes, I did not start bursting laughing during the first 30 seconds of the intro. I waited about a minute in, and then I started laughing. I consider that to be good. But laughter, joy, all these things, these are good. Anyway, so a lot of the letters have been at least questioned at one time or another as for authenticity, including modernly they have been re-looked at again because we have a habit. As long as it's been written down and somebody before us accepted it, we don't question it. And it's a lot of that way. With traditions in Christianity, with traditions in Judaism, this was how the previous generation did it, so this is how we're going to do it.
But within even within the books that they've included in the Bible, within the other letters, some of the other letters say that even at that time, the unstable people were taking Paul's words out of context and using it to damn themselves, and the unstable people always do this.
Yes, and context in the Bible is always important, and context in the Bible is always lost when somebody starts quoting it to try and defend one point or another. There are very few spots where you can literally just stand alone. This is it. Boom. You don't need to know anything else about the line. You can probably get away with teacher. What are what is the greatest commandment? Love the Lord God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and with it, love thy neighbor as thyself. That's about the smallest piece of non-context information from the Bible you can take and not have to have other contexts. And even then, it's probably best to have gone back to Leviticus and see the original one. Actually, Deuteronomy and Leviticus and see the original ones. But so yes, and even back then, they were already starting to take those things and run with it. And we do it today. I mean, I've been guilty of it.
Well, there's also so much in today that, things have been, there's been time that we don't understand the context of the culture at all. That when they're talking about having 7 wives, 7 husbands for a wife, where the first husband died and then the next one married her and the next one married her and all of that because they all just died like a string of Christmas lights. We have no idea why this happened. We don't know that the whole, Levirate marriage was like insurance for the woman if her husband died.
Yeah.
So to us it's like, oh my gosh, why would you do this? This is crazy. Oh, they're just throwing her to the next guy.
Well, and we also take the term wife and husband to mean something in the modern era. We don't really know, but that necessarily true 2,000 years ago, 3,500 years ago, exactly what those terms entailed.
And there were different legal responsibilities and different legal rights than are currently the case.
Yeah.
So we have our current understanding of husband and wife, and that throws us off when we're talking about these things. So even when Jesus is sitting here saying, you know, one man, one wife, you know, people are taking that out of context and saying that that means that he was talking about gays, but that was an answer about divorce being wrong, even though Moses allowed it, and Moses only allowing it because people's hearts were so hard. You had to keep people from killing their wives. I mean, that's I'm reading into it right there. The hearts being so hard was the issue, but
there's a lot in there like that. We really so much. It'd be great if there was other works from 3,500 years ago that were just laying around so that we could pick them up and get a better cultural context. We weren't worried about the story, but the understanding of what was going on. There's so little written or oral tradition stuff that survives that long. And Christianity is not the only religion that suffers from that either. Go ahead and try to study Zoroastrianism. Great, you know, that's a religion that's really, really old that there's not much at all that survives from it. And even the stuff that we do have that survives from I'm gonna say this, and boy, there's gonna be people pissed off. Pop culture religions like feminism and things like that, coming from Gaelic. Well, there's so much not written down. We don't actually know what was back there. So what we end up with is somebody's writings many, many years later. Our understanding, you know, we did the one on ancient gods and on modern gods, looking at the Viking thing. Most of the history from that is written from 1280. You know, we have so much that we're missing from context stuff. Apparently Marshall started something there. For those who don't know, you can also get a hold of us on Facebook and Twitter, which is why I stop and check my phone. Because if I see something pinging for First Geek Congregation, I usually stop and check to see whether there's something that involves our current conversation. Other than that, not really. Apparently the hat rack is the most popular thing we've done recently. That's horrible. But there's some great articles, and I know I said I'm going to start posting all of my source links on the YouTube videos and on the First Geek Congregation page, so that later on people can go look up stuff that I've used as my research links. And this time, well, you guys saw me doing the last minute putting together all this information. I didn't actually post any of my links this time. So later on, go check out the First Geek page because there's a couple of links I'll put on there. Okay. One of them, for instance, why Christian fundamentalists and many other conservatives prefer Paul's teachings to Jesus Christ. And the idea being, Paul's a very, if your position in life was this was your position, period. And Titus 2:9-10. Tell slaves to be submissive to their masters and to give satisfaction in every respect. They are not to talk back, not to pilfer, but to show complete and perfect fidelity, so that in everything they may be an ornament to the doctrine of God our Savior. Yeah. Now, question for you. Before Paul, did Jesus say anything about that everybody should be just submissive, completely submissive to governments and the people that own you or what have you?
He did the turn the other cheek.
Turn the other cheek, and the other supporting evidence that you might do is render unto Caesar.
Yeah, that's what I'm about to say.
So
it's not unheard of. It was just elaborated
considerably. I mean, it was expounded upon to the point that no matter what it is.
But also, when Jesus was being brought to Pilate, Pontius Pilate. Sorry, I'm bad. I learned to read
You call him
more
Pontius.
than.
Well, they're not English words. They're not.
Yeah, I don't even know how I'm supposed to pronounce. Okay,
Pilate.
so anyway, Pontius Pilate, when he was there, he was like, it wouldn't be up to you except it was given to you. So now, granted, the context of that comment was when he was all like, well, I could totally have you killed and blah, blah, blah. And Jesus is just like, it wouldn't be up to you except, it was given to you.
Yeah.
So basically, yes, you have this position. God gave it to you.
But then my friend was like, well, who really owns the lawmakers and such? And was talking about the temptation of Jesus Christ when all these nations will be yours if you bow down to me. So is it God that you're, or Satan that you're?
Well, the thing is he said not to resist an evil person.
Right.
So if you're not supposed to resist an evil person and you're supposed to go the extra mile when somebody's mistreating you,
Mm-hmm.
there's the faith in God part.
The do not repay evil for evil.
Yeah, because basically there's the whole, God treats good people and evil people both with the same reign, both with the same, situation. But ultimately it's God's to avenge, not you.
Right.
And when you take that into your own hands, you're doing evil.
Mm-hmm.
So Paul takes a lot of those things and he expands upon them considerably.
But it's only one half of a conversation that we're getting. So we're doing that crazy Pearson thing where we take Paul's thing and take it to the ridiculous limit.
But
I'm gonna shut up now.
No. It's actually quite valid. The question becomes, Paul already takes these things to a very, very, almost to an extreme. I mean, he's talking about now keep in mind, when I say slaves, the Old Testament we have slaves. I don't have the Old Testament up there anymore. Old Testament we had slaves. They were a very particular type of slave, bondsmen, because depending on which translation you're reading will give you a different reading on what it is. Bondsman type slavery is, let's say, he accidentally kills my cow with his car. Obviously, there's no cars back then, but
there's no cars either. So.
Well, you kicked the cow, it fell over dead. That's the important part. My cow is dead. You owe me for a cow, and you don't have the money for a cow. Guess what you are? You're a bondsman. You are now in slavery, and who you could pay that off, or until 7 years is up, because Old Testament laws, every 7 years you're given the option.
I'm still waiting for Americans to do that.
We kind of do, actually. We kind of do, in weird, odd ways. For instance, take old debts. Okay, used to be most of the states either had 7 or 10 years. If a debt has been on the books for 7 or 10 years unpaid for a creditor, without any deal being made or anything, it's done. It's gone. It's written off.
I still get calls from my brother with his creditors.
Well, now, however, there's a company that's well known. What the hell is this thing? I've gotten a call from them before a couple of times. But they'll take stuff that's out of date, already expired, and they still try to collect on it. There's always somebody's gaming the system. It's unfortunate. Anyways, the type of slave you are, it's not what we think of for modern American
Chattel
history.
slavery.
So what?
You think of chattel slavery.
Yes. The Greeks kind of had that. So when you hear about slaves, it can be from a couple of different contexts, depending on what time period it is that you're talking about in the Bible and exactly even what town you're talking about. In the case of a bondsman, you're supposed to have been treated well anyways. You don't get whipped. You don't get, you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to be beaten. You're not supposed to be any of these things. because you're probably more likely than not.
You're not owned.
So what?
You're not owned.
You're not owned. You're not property. Not in that respect. And even if you were to have been received via war or something like that, you were still supposed to be treated just like all the rest of them were. You get into the Greek time period, it can be a little bit different. But anyways, the point being, we hear these terms and go back to what Liz said about cultural context. And see, there was a point I was making, and I'm kind of delaying because I don't remember what the point was.
No.
So I'm
for
filling
time.
this in here. It's not happening. I've lost the point, unfortunately.
Get him.
Context. Okay.
It was before that. You look like you're going to say something. Damn it. So,
Context for, what, because the words, what we think of when we think of these words have changed.
oh, absolutely.
When we're using the same words to describe things like that kind of slavery versus chattel slavery, we have a completely different idea of what is being conveyed by these terms, that you have to go ahead and be totally submissive and everything.
Yeah.
But the thing that's really unpopular with our culture, is the idea of not resisting an evil person, that we're supposed to go ahead and do what they say, even if they're evil.
Yeah.
Because we have this,
We're
we have this
supposed to
fight back
abolish evil.
mentality. We have this, crusaders idea that we are going to be holy warriors that go in there and slay evil. But if evil could be slayed out of the world, it would have died when the flood happened. That would have been it. It would have been dead.
And
Sorry.
one of the problems I have with our slay evil mentality. We produce so much, I'm not actually doing anti-war rhetoric here, but we do so much collateral damage. How many people die from drone strikes because we're after one guy who was going to kill probably 10 people? How many people did we kill in the process of getting them?
Well, how many people did we kill in Hiroshima?
Yeah.
Hiroshima was one of these things, and I'm not defending Hiroshima.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, have you ever seen the estimates what they thought if we would have continued on with that war, and we would have done the land, millions. Literally, the death toll was expected to be millions. Hiroshima surprisingly saved a lot of Japanese lives and a lot of American lives.
But that's a hypothetical. We don't know for sure.
We don't know for sure. Pretty good idea.
We were guessing, and we killed a
We
whole
don't
bunch
even
of
know if we were gonna
civilians
land
just
at
in
all.
case.
This is true.
This is the difference. When people give me crap about God wiping out a city, like a particular city per se, I seem to remember a conversation with Abraham where he argued that how many people could be good in that town and it'd be okay. So he went from like 50 down to like 10 or something.
5.
Five?
Wasn't it? I think the
Was it
final number was
5 or
5.
10?
I can find 5 just men. I think that's what it was. I think it was 5. It's either 10 or 5 though.
I'm pretty sure we killed more than 10 people, that were good in Hiroshima. I think that's got us met on the whole, just time period when you nuke somebody.
This is true. This is true. And I let enough. We did more damage as it was from firebombing. Everything else we did in Japan, rather than those 2 nukes. Those 2 nukes surprisingly were less damaging. They were great in that they were a spectacular one-shot deal, but we killed more people and everything else on their mainland with firebombings and everything else than we did with those 2 bombs. It's a very complicated thing, but it boils back down to the question of were we okay to do it in the first place? Should we have been there? Should we have been taking on that fight? Hard to say. Do you take on an evil person?
Well, the thing about it is if you keep taking on people that you're sure are evil, and you've been misled by anything, if you're wrong,
Yes. You still
remember
have one.
God's the one that avenges.
Yes.
And even if you're doing it because you don't know, if you've attacked somebody and killed somebody innocent, you're gonna pay for it.
Yep.
So.
And that's an interesting war.
Sorry.
Oh no, because war basically could be its own topic one of these days. I mean, honestly, how we modernly deal with war versus what they were talking about in the Old Testament, and some of the clarifications that happen in the New Testament. It could be its own discussion topic. It's pretty big. But going back to the actual topic at hand. Paul versus Jesus. And I'm not going to make the epic rap battles in history. I never liked the announcer for that thing. Anyways, I'm gonna
Going
do-
down.
so what?
Okay.
That's fair. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Now, there's going to be some context that have to be added to this list because, unfortunately, this is one of those lists where, hey, here's what he said versus what Jesus said. Without the context, it doesn't necessarily work out very well. Romans 13:12. The night is far gone, the day is at hand. Okay, come on, just at least try to put some context in this. So give me a second here. What Paul was talking about is, here we go. Love does no wrong to a neighbor, therefore love is fulfilling the law. Besides this, you know what hour it is, how to fulfill time for now for you to wake from sleep. For salvation is nearer to us now than when we first believed. The night is far gone, the day is at hand. Let us then cast off the works of darkness and put on the armor of light. Basically, he's talking about the return of Jesus. He's saying, dude, now's the time it's going to happen. Versus, and this is one of those great lines to just show exactly how the basis for some of those people I said that are kind of angry about Paul. This is one of those great lines from it because he's saying, basically now, back then now. Versus Luke 21:8. Take heed that you're not led astray, for many will come in my name, saying, the time is at hand. Do not go after them. In fact, Jesus goes on in a number of other places and says, you will not know the time, the day, or the hour of return. So, Paul's thoughts on this are completely and utterly different than what Jesus says. Jesus says, don't listen to these people. Don't listen because they don't know. I'm going to skip that.
I like the Matthew 24 where Jesus talks about because of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. It would be tougher to love our enemy. It'll be tougher to love those that do not believe.
Yeah.
Because I keep on getting the reaction that hate is such a strong word. We don't really hate them. Well, the love of most will grow cold.
I've taken to using Paul's description of what love is because people seem to have forgotten.
love isn't about marriage. That scripture, it's how those who see things differently.
Don't forget. Don't forget, from the Greek, how many words for love do they have? 4. Yeah. How many words do they all get translated into?
1. Yeah.
Or 2, charity.
Charity gets used from time to time. Depends on which translation too. Yeah. But so sometimes when Paul's talking, unless we can read Greek, we're missing
A lot of
some.
context.
Yeah.
75% of them.
But he does not often talk about eros, for instance. Romantic love was not one of his interests. Again, with that whole. We're not going to go down that path, but yeah. So
But yeah,
Love is a thing.
we basically said love in Romans 13 is about eros. So and that's not what it was.
And the translations that use charity, I've seen a great debate that charity is a very, very poor word to be used in that context, especially given the modern connotations of charity. What's I about to say?
Romans 14.
Oh, yes. God of the dead versus the God of the living. Romans 14. For to this end Christ died and lived again, that he might be Lord both of the dead and of the living. Jesus, Luke 20:38. Now he is not God of the dead, but God of the living.
Well, that was where he was explaining that God was about the living, because he was using, one of my favorite things he did was he proved something using a verb tense. that
Jesus was an English geek.
Yeah, it was awesome. Except it wasn't English.
Nah, I know.
But
Hebrew geek, I suppose.
Grammar geek.
Grammar geek.
Jesus was a grammar nut.
So
I was trying not to say that about Jesus, man. Come on.
Oh, it's him now. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And some responded, well said, teacher.
There's some context.
The thing is.
Well, that was right after your spiel.
And he said that basically to prove to people that one of my reasons that's my favorite is because he was talking to the Sadducees who only, or was it the Pharisees?
Sadducees.
I'm pretty sure it was the Sadducees.
That's what it says.
But anyway, they didn't accept anything but the first 5 books. So he used like a sentence from the first 5 books to prove to them that the resurrection happened. They've been arguing about it forever. And he was like, see this tense? God of the living.
And actually, one of the reasons why this was an interesting one, because one, of course, context is important, and oddly enough, context in this one is not as important as it is in some of the others. But the bit that God is a living God from the New Testament or from the Old Testament. But it is another one of those statement versus statement. No, it doesn't match. But I don't consider this to be a valid match. There are ones I consider to be, I think the first one's very valid. This one, yeah.
Well, the thing is, they're talking about different things. They can't be used if they're talking about different things. And also, even if you took this seriously, okay? If Jesus is sitting here saying that God is not a God of the dead, but he hasn't died yet, and then Paul says that he died so he could be the God of the dead too, then they're not arguing.
Because you got 2
They're
different
just
time
talking
periods.
about different time periods. Exactly.
Yeah. And like I said,
That's like when it's Matthew 24 talking about people will come in my name and everyone's translating that to be Messiah, but it also means anointed. And what are Christians? Anointed. So most people aren't going to be deceived by saying that I am the Messiah. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's a lot of context for that. There's also several different areas where it's talked about where there's going to be people that say even there's that Lord part where it's like, yeah, they're going to come to me and say they did miracles in my name, but I'm going to be like, I didn't know you. Get away from me.
So is
Evil
believing enough, or is it actually doing what he's saying?
Well, actually, there's a great debate between the way Paul operated and the way Jesus operated. Which one said faith, basically was a faith person versus which one was faith and works.
And even between the two, between the letter writers, I can't say two because there's more than two. But even between the letter writers, there's an argument on whether faith alone is enough or works.
Yeah.
But the thing is if you have genuine faith and it's not bullshit, and I'm sorry to be so strong about that, but if you genuinely believe something, it's going to affect how you behave.
Towards your enemy.
So there's a difference between works and evidence of your belief.
One of the places I went before Renee, always liked a lot of their theological standpoint. But one of the things that always kind of bugged me, we are saved through faith alone. And then usually, somebody's trying to defend their point, but yes, if you have the faith, then you're going to do the works. Okay. So, no, I'm actually one of those people that believes works has to go with it. It's not just works, it's not just faith. You have to have the actions and the belief together. Without the two things together, in my opinion, you're missing the whole picture. You're not, because let's face it, if you just believe in Jesus, is that one of us?
No.
Okay. Makes me want to yell at my story. Yeah, answer your phone.
Being honorary again.
See what?
Okay.
Being honorary again.
Yes, he is. We down.
Hey,
Maybe.
okay.
We now have the hat rack of Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dew? Oh my gosh. Okay, check it out.
Anyways, but this is actually one of the other foundational fights among churches. It has been for a very long time, which basically boils down to Paul was a faith guy, and Paul said faith. Faith, that's the important part. Just a second. I think this is the link that has it. Let's see if I got the right one. Nope. Yep. Nope. Yep. Yep. Okay. This one, I'm not going to give it coordinates or anything. What did Jesus operate under? Mosaic law. He grew up following Torah. He was in the synagogue. He spoke in the synagogue. Trust me, he would not have been back after 12 years old if he did not follow Torah. No matter whose son he is, it's just not going to work out. Very much Mosaic law. Now,
because he talked about when he was technically bad-mouthing the Pharisees in Matthew 23. he was saying, make sure you follow their rules, but don't do what they do.
Yes. Well, because they had, and he refers to it part of the time as tradition.
Mhm.
And actually, so does Paul. With this thing, because there was Mosaic law, and then there was all the legalism that went with what the Pharisees and the Sadducees were doing. And then in the middle is actual Torah. And they kind of followed it. I don't know. Sorry. Paul was an advocate of the idea that none of that mattered. None of the Old Testament, for the most part, mattered. Now, that was not that he was beyond quoting Old Testament stuff. Actually, he did quite frequently. But the grace, the faith portion of it, that was the key portion.
Well,
Everything else.
he was going to the Gentiles specifically.
Now there is an interesting debate because you brought that up because he was not worried about the Jews. To
That was
him,
Peter's job.
yeah. What he was after was all the Gentiles. There is a school of thought that Torah does not apply. Torah in its entirety does not apply to the Gentiles. Only a small fraction of it. And actually, I think it comes down to something 9 out of 10 commandments and about 20 other commandments from the Old Testament actually apply to the Gentiles because they are considered to be foreigners and sojourners. It's an interesting school of thought. I don't necessarily buy into it, but it's an interesting school of thought. Which in his case, when he's saying that, okay, if you're just talking to the Gentiles and you truly believe only a very small subset of the rules apply, I can see why he might have said some things he said. Did he ever say that Jesus did away with the old law?
I
Basically,
he might have
he
said
told
something like
Galatians,
that.
he kind of said that in Galatians, that if you follow the law, you're turning your back on Jesus, and Jesus means nothing.
Yeah, because if the law could save you, then Jesus wouldn't have had to die.
So it gets interesting because that little bits there in the word fulfill. Jesus fulfilled Torah. Becomes
Torah.
And there's also spots where he's like, if you break any of the law, any of it, if you decide you're gonna follow the law and you break one little part, you broke the whole law. You know, you're a lawbreaker, you're screwed.
Yes.
Lawbreaking.
Yeah.
Which oddly enough brings up the question, wait, was it an option to stop to follow it? I'm just saying. Because it was, if you pick one portion and break it.
Well, the thing about it is if you think that the law itself, you know, was the thing you're worshiping, then you couldn't follow Jesus because Jesus worked on the Sabbath. Yes, he you know, healed people. It was amazing. He did good. It was definitely good being done. And it was definitely granted by God. And the Pharisees freaking knew it because Nicodemus went through and told Jesus that they knew it. So it's not that they didn't know, but if you valued the law over God, if that's the thing you're worshiping, you're screwed because it's not going to save you.
And oddly enough, there is kind of a reverse thing that comes from this, and that is there's a Jewish school of thought. It is always good to do good. If you're a doctor and it's Sunday and you work at the hospital, you're going to work because it's good to do good. Oddly enough,
Means Saturday, right?
or Saturday, actually, would be depending on how you look at Friday night, Saturday's the other day. I'll let it sundown on Saturday because it's much more complicated when you go off this solar cycle or lunar cycle. Excuse me. Yes, you're right.
Sorry.
No, because it's funny because sometimes It depends on what I'm discussing. If I'm discussing Old Testament stuff, usually I stick pretty much to the Saturday thing, not a problem. For some reason, if I start talking about New Testament stuff, it's Sunday, obviously. Sabbath is on Sunday. Yeah, this is how your brain gets confused and wired when you start following too many different people's interpretations. And so anyways, that whole thing though, surprisingly self-resolves under that one statement. It's always good to do good, because then as long as you are doing good for the common good, or doing good for the individual besides yourself, you are permitted to do it. The Pharisees and Sadducees had rules against that. I mean, you could not do that. You were not supposed to do anything. And surprisingly, it was an illogical extension of the Sabbath law.
Could I walk here from there, from home?
Ha! Here's the thing. Is it more than 3,000 steps?
I don't know.
So you got to
I
count.
have never
You gotta count.
counted.
Because they got so legalistic with it. It was 3,000 steps. If you had to go more than 3,000 steps, it was work. Unless, now this is where they start.
It gets ridiculous. Rules lawyering.
Oh man, I'm telling you, it's to levels you've never seen before. Because what they would do is, if they knew they were going to go that far the next day, they'd take a coat and they'd leave it there beyond the, around 3,000 steps. And so what they actually had to do is go get their coat the next day, and then they could walk the rest of the way. Because somehow the fact that they were recovering a possession.
Took away from the steps.
And everyone had
Magically.
a DM guide.
Despite now, there actually, I try to remember, there was some sort of, and this is very convoluted type stuff. There's something that comes up with the idea of where the 3,000 steps came from. I do not recall. I have heard the story. I don't remember. This is one of those moments of, oof. What? Harvey's probably looking it up. Okay.
But I know walking to work is more than 3,000 steps. It's about 3 miles. So I would say, yeah. 3 apartmentism. Okay.
No, that's baptism.
I know, but
I know somebody's making fun of my writing.
Oh, okay.
just wanting to clarify.
Apartment 1B.
There's only one baptism. It's said by Paul versus the idea of baptism. Jesus never did Jesus ever specifically say that everyone must be baptized?
Well, technically in the Great Commission, he says, make disciples, baptize them, and then teach them everything that I've commanded you.
But to be a follower of Christianity, the term was used at the time, or to be accepted into heaven.
You have to be born again of the Spirit and water. I don't know what water specifically means, but I'm assuming since he got baptized that's what it meant.
Paul, on the other hand, goes with the idea there's only one baptism. You recognize the bit?
No, that one's on loss.
No.
Yes, sorry.
I don't know anything about saying no to technology. It's not like I've, called people at 1 a.m. accidentally or anything. Sorry.
I won't say who you called.
That's why I try not to put too many phone numbers in my phone, because
But Marshall sounded almost confused talking to me.
I'll try to be deleting someone's phone number and call them up, and I'm like, no.
See, Ephesians 4:5.
Yep, my worst book of the New Testament. I cannot, I tried so much to read that and it just drives me up the wall.
Psalms. Psalms is my downfall. I can't make it through Psalms.
Well, that's all.
Well, that's
songs,
easy.
isn't it? It's
So what?
basically songs.
It's, yes,
like reading
it's a big thing of
freaking
sheet music.
songbook. Yeah, it's very hard to read that.
Actually, it's a big thing with sheet music, but we don't provide the sheet music.
So,
And I don't read, and I don't read I barely read Hebrew. I definitely don't read cancellation. So yeah, no, I got that.
And what is it? The Psalms and Proverbs and something else is supposed to,
Ecclesiastical.
no. It's supposed to be the completion of something. I can't remember what it's, but apparently Psalms and Proverbs has prophecy in it. And I don't know. And it's somewhere in the New Testament that it says something to that effect. And I can't remember what it's supposed to be.
Well, I know that Jesus has that part where he's like, there's one part where they're trying to call him out for basically claiming to be God, and he's like, well, in here it says you be gods, And there's also that other part where he quotes Psalms from David, where it's like how can the Messiah be his son if he's already being addressed as Lord there? And then they stopped asking him questions, which was clever because it's really hard to keep religious people from asking you questions when they're trying to, get you for something.
Well, that's part of the game, isn't it? When you have a conversation with somebody, let's say you have a conversation with somebody who disagrees with your point of view, you don't ask the question, say you're wrong. Everybody quits listening then. See, but didn't you read in Romans where it says, yes, you still do that game a lot.
And he shut them up. So he won.
Wait for Jesus. The line of question is Ephesians 4 through 6. There is one body and one spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all.
Unity.
So what?
Trying to get some Christian unity going on.
Apparently. And the idea presented, one baptism in that, is just baptized by the Spirit. It's not talking about needing to be baptized in the water. It's not talking about any of the processes or anything like that. And baptism, another one of those interesting subjects unto itself. Hang on a second. It's here somewhere. Find it. Yeah. Okay. Romans 6:3. Someday I'm not going to pick on heavy topics like this. I'm just going to start doing fluff stuff. So much easier. Romans 6:3 speaks of spiritual baptism. Or don't you know that all of us who are baptized into Jesus Christ were baptized into his death? Basically, yet again, spiritual rather than being baptized in water.
going to have to look up every time he says, or don't you know? Because that one phrase is in my favorite
idiot.
book, part of the book, in Romans. It's kind of like, how many times does Jesus say in the Sermon on the Mount, you have heard this, but I say this.
Yes. And actually, phrases and things like that, going back to that, how many of the books of, or how many of the letters written by Paul are actually letters written by Paul. So that phrasing and things like that is a lot of the modern stuff they're doing to try and figure out, is this really right or not? Was this really written by him or really written by somebody else? And
By 1/60th scale instead of 1/40th or 1/20th, 1/44th.
Yeah, in scale.
So-
In scale is a 1 to 160 ratio.
Well, it's also 1/44th and 1/20th, if you look at it weird.
But the actual scale is 1 to 160.
Okay.
now, let me explain. Let me explain this. Because before we even started today, we were trying to figure out the scaling of it. And if anybody out there knows, I'll take your answer.
But that's how it works out. That's the math. My buddy's an engineer. I can send it to him.
You appealed to a higher geek.
Yes.
Nice.
So 1/8.
It's somewhere between
So-
1/8 and 1/9.
So 1/20th would be almost 1/7 or 1/6 maybe. So 1/6 scale is a cool idea.
So basically, if you were trying to visualize it like a guy, the 1/18th guy, 3 times bigger than an O scale. If you were like to be thinking with it.
Weird.
A diorama of a fire
So
truck.
back to geekiness. Oh,
Did we ever leave? I don't believe much has been said here today that wasn't one way or the other. Anyways, when it comes to the books of Paul, they kind of break it down right now. The books of Paul.
The books of Paul.
Paul's letters.
Yep.
They break it down into different ideas on how they figure out, how they're trying to figure out whether these are real or not. Stylistic stuff, for instance, that phrase you love so much. Theological, was there a huge change in theology between this letter, these letters, and this one letter over here? Not corroborated by Acts. Acts is a pretty good description of what happened to him. Does this letter have things in it that that there's zero mention of over here? It's not necessarily the best test in the world, but and one of them is anachronisms. Are there things written in the letter that
Couldn't have happened during that time.
that either didn't happen or he couldn't have known about happening during the time period, et cetera, et cetera. And there's no, my iPad's really acting weird on this page. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
It's cutting the page off, no matter how I rotate it or anything else. And it re-scrolls the way it's, I don't know. Apparently, I'm not going to get the information for the rest of this page. That would have been handy. But yeah. So anyways, phrasing, things like that. I want to bring that since you mentioned that phrase, favorite phrase. That's the stuff they kind of start looking through to try and decide. And there's not going to be another Council of Nicaea and suddenly half the letters of Paul are suddenly disappear from it. I highly doubt that does happen. And even with my favorite biblical pet peeve being Revelations, even those who don't accept Revelations usually do along the lines of there's and then there's Revelations, because it's been accepted in modernity as being part of it. Modern people have not seen a Bible without Revelations in it in a long time. People have not seen a copy of the Bible without all of Paul's letters in a long time. So it's not going to change, unfortunately.
But yeah, it kind of makes me wonder about is it the Ephesians church that I wish that you were hot or cold, but not lukewarm? And
I believe that's right.
I get phrased that a lot.
Gotcha.
Because it's like,
I'm going to skip that one because we already talked about law a little bit.
because I allow sin to exist in the land. And they think that's what that means.
Here we go. Okay, we all heard the bit that basically you don't call anybody father.
Right.
Comes from Matthew 23:9, and you may not call any your father on earth, for one is your Father who is in the heavens. So that's on the other hand, you have Paul saying, context dependent here, for even if you had 10,000 others to teach you about Christ, you only have one spiritual father. For I became your father in Jesus Christ when I preached the good news to you. 1 Corinthians 4:15. Let's get that. Yeah, let's pull the context. That one up. Nope, no, don't do that. Stupid figure.
This is not to shame you, but to warn you as dear children. I'm writing you this.
Yeah. His statement, I can kind of get where he was taking it. It's kind of like the thing of titles. Teacher, rabbi. There's only one teacher. That is Jesus Christ. However, we have rabbis. Messianic rabbis are a thing. Some of them actually have a problem with the title because this is contradictory to what has been said. Paul is not trying to elevate himself, in my opinion. Paul is not trying to elevate himself to this level. He's trying to say, I've been your teacher and your leader and your guide so far. But does it contradict? Does it actually flat out contradict between these two things? It kind of does. It depends on how you want to look at it, but it kind of does. And do I want to do that one? That's awfully long. Get the formula so I can go with other scales. You're not going to give it up, are you?
Oh, I also want to know 164th and 187th.
All right. Here's the one.
So you times the 2, and then
Yeah, and there's your scale, your n. There's the scale of person. So there's your color right there. You don't do it by the whole scale. You just go by 18. 1 divided by 168 times 18. So you can plug in any other number you want.
I don't know how to do that math. What are operations? I don't know.
My dear answer.
It's been like 25 years since I've been in school.
Okay.
And I didn't go.
We should not talk of such age problems. Because I think Harvey and I got the same problem.
So yeah, it's a little bit more difficult for me because I didn't even get into algebra. Okay. I was in general mathematics in high school.
Basically, this one boils down to Paul saying that if you're doing this is what you do for a living. You should make a living at it. If you're being a preacher or what have you, this is what you should make a living at. Jesus saying essentially, no, not the same. And 1 Corinthians 9:14. In the same way, the Lord has commanded that those who preach the gospel should receive their living from the gospel. Some people take this to mean that you should be, if you're doing this, if you have, I obviously do not, but if you're a Catholic priest, you should make a living as being a Catholic priest. Everything that you do should be paid for. Everything you should do should be paid for. No, that's not quite right. You should be cared for by the church. Somebody takes the other side of that with without cost you have received, without cost you are to give. Essentially, the idea over here is that access to those teachings is free. That's the way I take it. But some people take that as being a direct contradiction. I don't know that if I see them contradicting or not. What they're talking about here is access to information.
Yeah, Jesus also said that, even, that the lilies of the field don't, produce clothes, but even they're better dressed than Solomon. I mean, and that God takes care of his people like he takes care of birds. He cares about birds, so he cares about you more.
Right.
So there's the expectation that you're going to be taken care of.
Along with a lot of history involved with it too. Because over here, if you're a Cohen, were you taken care of? Yeah. You were supposed to be during the time of Moses. You were going to, part of the tithes that were given, part of the tithe system was to support the church itself. That was what was happened. Part of it is given as wave offerings, some of it is given as burnt offerings, etc., but part of that actually also what you gave up in exchange for you being part of the Cohen lineage, or the Levite lineage, excuse me, was that you had no lands.
Mm-hmm.
You owned nothing, but everybody else supported you at the same time because you were going to be taking care of all their spiritual requirements. But people, and these lists of these contradictions, you notice I'm jumping, I don't know if you see, but I'm jumping from list to list because some of them are just so interesting. It's like, but you're apples and oranges here. Mm-hmm. You're not comparing the same issue. What he's talking about is that here, I cannot, if Harvey needed healed, okay, I'm not a healer to start with. But let's say for a moment I was, and I could do laying on hands, and whatever Harvey's problem is goes away. I don't know, what's your problem? So whatever Harvey's problem, I cannot look at him and say, yes, $50, please, and I will take care of that for you. No, I can't do that. That's what Jesus was talking about. Because there was healings, there were ministries, and there were things like that that you got a smart aleck comment. I could tell you've got a smart aleck comment about the start.
So that would make you a dick, clear. No? Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with
20 gold pieces.
you. Okay,
Gives me an idea.
You're healed.
Nope.
Next time.
I like the fact your wife just looks at you and says, nope. There's no discussion. How many apostles were there?
Yeah, is that right?
Say what?
He answered everything.
Yeah, it's mathematical. I'm surprised he didn't say that the scale of it was 42 too, but just apparently he's missing the jokes. How many apostles were there? According to Jesus.
Are we going to say the 12 apostles?
There's 12. So, at any point, Jesus said there was a 13th one named Paul. No, never happened. Never happened. Paul repeatedly claimed he was an apostle, yet not once did Jesus ever call Paul apostle, even by Luke's quotations taken from Paul's claims to his encounter with Jesus. Paul's vision accounts in Acts 9, 22 and 26. These accounts, the Jesus whom Paul met said Paul would be martyrs, which means witness, not apostle. So there's those angry people I mentioned at the beginning of this that called him all sorts of names. This is one of the things that they say, oh, well, he was one of the apostles. And I got nothing. I wasn't there. And there's not really any evidence in a way. I mean, there is, let's see, Barnabas 8:3.
Barnabas 8:3? I didn't know Barnabas had a book.
Tab. It's not.
Unless
7, 8,
moms.
9, but
No. It's not a book. It's a writing. It is not, however,
Canon.
Which the importance of it though was that it says,
And it was broken down in verses and chapters? Wow.
well, it was handy. It was handy that when they wrote the Torah, they broke it down into 5 books, and then they gave each one headings and numbers at the beginning of every line. It's great that they did that. It was so much easier to read that way.
We got 2 meetings going on at once. Yeah, we got like.
And here in a couple seconds, we're going to
We're
have.
good.
yeah.
There's bears milling around out there.
Right about the time that pops up. Awesome.
Say what?
Oh, I said right about the time that pops up. Awesome.
You're a disturbed man, Marshall.
Hey,
Anyway, it was the whole bit though was that in that particular writing, it talks about there being 12 apostles. That's it. So whether or not they're really, but it's non-canon writing, and as much as making fun of the chapters and verses, etc., none of this was ever written that way. Of course not. They didn't even write the Hebrew with vowels. Come on.
we're trying to save on that. No way, they didn't have a school. Okay.
They didn't what?
So they didn't have movable typeface. We're not talking about saving on lead.
No, they saved on ink as they slowly but carefully.
It's some of this.
So, anyways, we're gonna wrap it up because apparently there's other people milling around. There's another meeting going on
People
next
waiting.
door.
Yes.
So I'm gonna wrap this up. They're not actually in this room, I don't think.
They just left.
I'm not sure. I don't know which room they're in.
But
They're
there's
in
probably
this
four
one.
thirds.
Anyways, we'll wrap it
That's
up.
a wild
But
guess.
as much as I have problems with the number of Paul's writings, I did not realize how over the top some people were taking that sort of thought. Because to me, Paul's writings are the writings of a guy. It's just a guy. This is my personal opinion. This is the things that gets me in trouble. He's
But
just
then
a guy.
when he says to Timothy, all scripture is God breathed and profitable for doctrine and reproof,
But
was he
right
talking
after-
about his own writing?
But right after,
It would be kind of handy, wouldn't it?
but right after that, he had that part about how people, go ahead and take it wrong, that there's going to be false teachers and all of that.
Exactly. And that's the thing about it. This is all of this stuff is so foundational to the churches. It is foundational to a lot of modern thought, a lot of modern conservatism and things like that. So it's important to kind of understand it and to follow it. I don't necessarily, not all of it do I take to heart personally. There are parts of it I look at and go, you were really pissed off when you wrote that. And do what you want with it, but I can't get in faith. But on the other hand, every one of those times, if you just go back, there's 4 little books, they're not even particularly large. Go back to the Gospels, and they usually will tell us a lot more every time. And it's a lot simpler. It's a lot simpler. Only 156 little bits versus
Because
1,050.
he's trying to make sure you get the point across in the letters.
Well, they're all
And in the 4 or 5 books is what was said, and we were getting it wrong, and he wanted to make sure we got it right.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sure I would have missed this one later. Because I can't even use those on the board, unfortunately. Seems like such a great idea. The camera won't pick it up. But even with all those problems, there's still a multitude in there. Galatians. I still love fruits of the Spirit. It is a great statement.
But that's how we know that we're different from society, not we're to make society that way.
That is a debate for a different day.
And I also love that description of love, because we don't have 4 words for love in our language. We miss the actual breakdown of what the heck he's talking about. But when he's like, love is patient, love is kind, love does not demand its own way, you can see a difference in behavior than what people are using as love.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with
Because
you.
it's towards our enemy, not to the person that we love. Arrows.
No, it's to all. It's to all. It's not just to our enemy. It is to all.
Yeah.
That's one of those things that one of my other debates for another day.
Right.
Is that idea? Love your neighbor as yourself. Just right there. That one line. You
I
take
know,
that
I'm
line
just
and
trying
you
to
filter
make-
everything else through it.
I'm just trying to
It was
make
put
sure
on
that
equal
we,
footing as loving God.
Yes.
It
but
makes it really important.
the idea is that we are so bent on our enemy being wrong that we gotta correct them. That I use enemy instead of just neighbor.
Now, next week's stuff, I have no idea what the topic is yet. No idea. I've spent so much on this one, and still, I'll be honest, spent so much on this one, I still don't really think I got anything.
You can bring some soccer proverbs.
So what?
You bring some soccer proverbs.
That would have worked. Nah, it's not gonna work out. Anyways, so I don't know what next week's topic is. I come up with it. So I've got another number of other ones that are kind of in my queue. And one of these days I want to talk about. And we'll get around to all of that. So if you would hit that button for me.